Every August, about 1 million Torontonians crowd the streets of Greektown to attend the Greek community's Taste of the Danforth Festival. Over the course of a hot summer weekend, citizens of one of the most ethnically diverse cities in the world mix peacefully to sample Greek food and music in what has become a model celebration of multiculturalism and Greek civic pride. But it wasn't always this way. And it wasn't all that long ago when Toronto's good citizens also took to the streets in search of Greeks, but with a very different intent. When war broke out in 1914, Greece was politically divided over the issue of involvement. Greece's King Constantine supported Germany's Kaiser Wilhelm and wanted Greece to remain neutral. Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos, on the other hand, wanted Greece to enter the war in support of Britain. As a result, Greece remained officially neutral. But Greece's neutrality during the war created a problem for the Canadian government. When the war began, immigrants to Canada from countries officially at war with Britain were labeled resident alien enemies and put into internment camps. But because Greece was neutral, Greeks in Canada were free to live and work in the country. At the same time, because Greece's neutral status could change at any time, the Canadian Expeditionary Force was reluctant to recruit Greeks who might suddenly become alien enemies should Greece enter the war on the side of Germany. But even after conscription became law, many Greeks refused to fill out enlistment papers.
As the war dragged on and the anomalous situation of the Greeks kept them out of the war effort, they became an eyesore to returned veterans who saw these men of military age who were not pulling their duty. Greeks came then to exemplify the slacker being men who basically dodged the draft.
Compounding problems for Toronto's first Greeks was their high-visibility occupations. In 1918, the Greek community in Toronto numbered approximately 3,000 people, only about 0.5% of Toronto's population at the time. But while the community was small, Greeks owned and operated roughly 35% of the city's cafes and restaurants, most of its shoe shine parlors, and many of the fruit and vegetable and grocery stores. Like the Greek community itself, many of the businesses were located not along Danforth Avenue, as today, but in an area further south, bounded by Jarvis Street, Yonge Street, Carleton, and Dundas Streets. Unfortunately, this also happened to be where the large community of returned veterans lived. Of the approximately 630,000 Canadians who joined the Expeditionary Force, roughly 100,000 were from the Greater Toronto Area. 1 in 7 would not return. Of those that did, they found the city busier, dirtier, and more crowded than they had left it. They also found a society that didn't quite know what to do with them.
There were women and men flooding into the war plants in the cities. A city like Toronto would probably have seen 75,000 new jobs created in munitions plants. If you're a returned veteran coming back to Toronto in, say, 1918, you look around you and you see all your friends are dead or in hospital or shell-shocked. Your family's living in difficult conditions because you, the breadwinner, have been overseas and there hasn't been that much money coming in. Your pension would depend on how badly you were wounded. You probably had a lot of bureaucracy to go through to get it, and you may not have been paid anything as yet. So not only are you wounded, crowded, unhappy, seeing your friends die, seeing people get rich at home, seeing aliens get jobs because they tend not to enlist, and it's the British-born and the Anglo-Canadians who are doing the fighting. Everything just compounds to make you frustrated, make you ready to explode.
One last piece of the puzzle fell into place. The Great Wars Veterans Association called for their first National Congress to begin on Friday, August the 2nd. In anticipation of this meeting, close to 10,000 veterans from around the country descended on Toronto. Veterans in ever larger numbers were now present in the city, and they had on their mind their grievances.
As far as you're concerned, all those guys are slackers. They're people that should have never been let in and should now be deported. It's time to clean up this mess. I think that's very much the attitude.
In the sweltering heat of that August civic holiday weekend, their resentment and anger would finally explode. For the next 4 days, more than 50,000 Torontonians rampaged through the downtown streets, destroying every Greek restaurant they could find. It would turn into one of the worst anti-Greek riots in the world.